arrested for an overnight stabbing, and another was arrested for abusing a 6-year-old. Also, Hooters has closed their doors, and the search for silver scavenger hunt begins this week. I'm James Bellini, and this is Live. We'll get to the news in a minute, but first, here's a word from Mammoth Roofing.
Hi, I'm Trisha Lira, third-generation roofer and owner at Mammoth Roofing Services. I love what I do, and what I do is build the world's best roofs. Need financing? I got you. 12 months, 0 interest. I'm Trisha Lira. I want to be your roofer for life.
Starting things off, the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office is investigating an overnight stabbing. Around midnight last night, sheriff's deputies and first responders were dispatched to Vine Estates out there past the industrial park off of FM 308 for a reported stabbing. On scene, deputies located the victim, 24-year-old Lane Lubke, suffering from a stab wound to the upper left chest area and the abdominal area. 24-year-old Shay Shepard was applying pressure to the wounds, and when Lubke was taken to the hospital, he died due to his injuries. Both men were out drinking in San Angelo and were called home when Shepard's girlfriend heard gunshots and believed someone was breaking into the residence. In the confusion and under apparent influence, Shepard allegedly stabbed Lubke and was subsequently arrested and booked to the Tom Green County Jail for manslaughter. His bond has not yet been set, and this is still an active investigation. In more crime, a San Angelo man was arrested over the weekend for an aggravated sexual assault of a child. 60-year-old Joseph Montano was accused of playing husband and wife, a sexual game he invented with a 6-year-old child. Investigators were dispatched to the San Angelo police station for the outcry witness's statement. She said that Montano had been abusing the child living with him for about a month. Forensic interview of the child, she claimed that Montano begged her to play the game with him until she relented. Montano allegedly played husband and wife with the victim 3 times. He was arrested and booked into the Tom Green County Jail on June 21st and has a $202,000 bond. Have you downloaded the San Angelo Live mobile app yet? Over 11,000 of you have, and it's the best app in the business. Download it on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. It's free and keeps you updated with all the news in San Angelo and the surrounding area. In business, Hooters in San Angelo has closed their doors for good. 40 other Hooters locations have also locked their doors. At the San Angelo location, a Lone Star moving truck was seen outside, and in a statement, Hooters claimed the current market conditions has unfortunately forced them to close underperforming restaurants, but will continue to serve their guests at home with new frozen products currently in grocery stores. A note on the door of the San Angelo Hooters does encourage guests to visit their Odessa location. The San Angelo Live Summertime Search for Silver Scavenger Hunt, brought to you by Condos, Diamonds, and Coins, begins this Wednesday. That's right, we're just a couple days away from you being able to find $800 worth of silver somewhere in San Angelo or the immediate surrounding area. I made the last one too easy, so don't expect this one to be anything like the first time. I'm more than ready, as I've been prepping since the end of the June search for this one. Into weather, it's hot outside and it's going to be hot for the rest of the week with no rain in sight. Right now it's 100 degrees outside and the low tonight drops to 78, and that's pretty much the theme heading forward. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the highs are 101, 102, and 103 with lows in the upper 70s. Friday, the high is 101, and this coming weekend it looks like the high drops down to 99 on Saturday and Sunday. When we come back, Ryan Chadwick has sports, and then Joe Hyde sat down with SAISD Superintendent Dr. Chris Moran for an interview. But first, a word from the Bass Bunch.
Oh, hail. Yep, we got hail. But some dings and dents mean big discounts for you. We have over 700 cars and trucks at great prices, and they won't last long. Come by Jim Bass Cars and Trucks at the corner of Houston Hart at Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at bassbunch.com.
Texas A&M baseball is one win away from its first national championship in program history. After the Aggies split the weekend series with Tennessee, both teams square off tonight for a winner-take-all Game 3 to decide the champion. A&M won Game 1 9-5 before falling to Tennessee 4-1 in Game 2. It's been an excellent series so far, so look forward to end the 2024 season in spectacular fashion. First pitch in Omaha tonight is scheduled for 6 p.m. In other sports news, 2 Angelo State athletes received the Lone Star Conference Scholar Athlete Award. Bell's Golf, Laura Kilmova, and Rams Baseball Rance Rosas were the Angelo State recipients for 2024. Each academic year, the LSC presents a Scholar Athlete Award to one male and one female student athlete from each institution who is a part of the graduating class. The award recognizes outstanding achievements in scholarship, athletics, and leadership. To be eligible, honorees must have participated in their sport for at least 2 years. Laura Kilmova is a graduate student who made her mark in Rambell's Golf with a 6th-place finish at the top of Texas Invitational in March. Meanwhile, Rance Rosas was an integral part of the Rams' national championship baseball team last season and helped Angelo State to a runner-up finish in 2024. Congratulations to both student athletes and good luck in the future. And for more sports around the Concho Valley and beyond, be sure to check in every day at sanangelolive.com/news/sports.
It's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the giants and who will never, ever flinch.
Hello, it's Joe Hyde, publisher of San Angelo Live. We are in the palatial offices of our Superintendent of Schools of San Angelo Independent School District, Dr. Chris Moran.
Good to be here. I don't know about palatial.
These are palatial offices. Anyway, we always talk about how palatial things in the school district are right before you want to raise taxes, right?
There you go. Yeah.
But we just want to do this is summertime. We want to check up on the school district, find out what issues are concerning you. One thing is enrollment.
Yeah. So enrollment's been dropping since COVID. Mm-hmm. The good news is it's slowing. The drop is slowing, and we actually we hope that will even out and be and not be dropping in enrollment. But this past year was 1% drop. But again, that's a slow from 1 year to the next.
A slow drip.
That's right.
Slow drip.
It was 4.4 in 2020.
Okay.
And it slowed down to 1, and we anticipate it slowing.
That's percentage.
That's correct.
4.4%. Yeah. Where do you think these children are going? Because I don't think our community is dropping in population.
Right. And the interesting thing is this is a nationwide phenomenon.
Right.
Which is the curious thing. We know that fewer people are getting married, people are having fewer kids, and for one reason or another, when COVID hit us, we lost in the state of Texas about 4%, and we've not seen the full comeback. I anticipate that some of the parents that homeschooled their kids will probably get their kids back into public schools for activities and other things, but it's a slow comeback, but it is coming back.
So you think that homeschooling is primarily responsible here in San Angelo of the drop?
I think that's part of it, and I think that's a true statement for almost any community in Texas.
Have you looked at like the private schools or the charter schools to see is their enrollment going up? Do you know?
Well, I can only speak from my experience in East Texas that private schools enrollment may have gone up a little bit, but not substantially enough to warrant the change that we saw. I think the majority of it was homeschool.
Gotcha. One of the things that Angelo State University, and I think we've even talked about this before, but Angelo State University, Dr. Toplip, the provost there, said, the 2007, 2008, 2009 financial crisis, people weren't having children.
Yeah.
And so those kids would be middle school, high school. Yeah. I would think there's probably a bathtub there. And
there definitely is a drop. As I mentioned, during COVID, we saw the pre-K through 4th grade drop, and those numbers really have stayed the same, but there's that trough that's going through, and if there is a trough that you're speaking about, that would make sense. But it's been a steady decline since COVID, but again, I think there's a slow comeback. And I think, a lot of parents that I knew in East Texas that homeschooled their children did it for an abundance of reasons, but mainly the health reason was the big one.
To keep them away from the germ factory.
Exactly. But now that we're past most of that, I think
Right.
most people are getting more comfortable with just
Just
normal life.
let it go.
Yeah.
Let's even ride the bus to school. You have some new programs that you're starting up this summer, is that right?
Yeah, well, one thing that we'd like to highlight is our summer feeding program.
Mm-hmm.
We have one more week of summer feeding at Bradford Elementary and Crockett, but then at Glenn and the Southside Boys and Girls Club, that will continue through the end of July. And then we're really thankful for the partnership that exists with the let me make sure I get this right, but it's the Baylor Collaborative on Hunger and Poverty and Tom Green County Hunger Coalitions.
Right.
They join together and provide meals through the end of August. So we're thankful for that, and really it's pretty easy for families 18 and under, eat free, no identification, just show up.
So I could show up?
You could if you're 18 or under. And
I'll
let you work
So the
that
parents
way.
don't get to eat, but the kid can eat?
That's correct.
I got you.
Yeah.
And so it's at the Boys and Girls Clubs? Is that where they're distributing the food?
Southside Boys and Girls Club, and then Glenn Middle School.
Glenn Middle
Yeah.
School, okay. When did this, when I went to school, lunch was 45 cents, and you make sure you had, maybe it was 40 cents. I remember it was a quarter, a nickel, and a dime.
I paid a dime. I paid a dime for breakfast and lunch.
So when did this feeding kids at school become such a big deal?
Well, I think there's a recognition that families are struggling. It's not just inflation. It's just not the economy. It's
It's been going on for 20 years.
It's a humanitarian need where
Uh-huh.
we've got families that just either they don't eat the right things and are not disciplined enough to provide good square meals, or they just can't afford to do that. And so this is the Department of Agriculture's method to try to provide something healthy.
And to move some agricultural products.
Probably so.
That's
And
right.
those commodities, I'm sure, get a lot of business.
All right, so we just came off a legislative session, and school districts, the state, half of what they do is criminal justice, the other half is education, right? Pretty
seems
much.
that way, yeah.
Maybe build some roads in between,
Right.
but schools, public schools became highlighted primarily from a right-wing Republican push to go to vouchers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was illuminated during that, there is a I think a PR campaign to discredit public schools.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't understand what the value of public schools are, even though most of their property tax dollars go to the public schools. What do you think what is the main value of a public school?
Well, to start off with, I would say that I think it's important for the community to know that I support parent choice. I think parents should be able to choose private school, charter school, homeschool, public school.
Mm-hmm.
That's for the parents to decide. But the reason I'm not in this field, and this is my mission field, is because I firmly believe if we don't educate the masses in Texas, everybody, we're in trouble as a state. Our future's in dire.
Why would our future be is it because we would have an underclass that can't read?
Well, you'll have people that aren't skilled or don't possess the soft skills and the things that we need them to possess to get out of the workforce and be productive and move us forward. When we get older and need help, we're going to depend on that younger generation. And so it's incumbent upon us as a state to make sure that every kid gets educated and to fully fund and support public schools. And I agree, there has been a campaign, and it was pretty obvious in the last session that we were pawns in a political game.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's pretty hard to find great teachers these days. Fewer people are going into teaching, and the ones we get are less qualified than the ones that we may have gotten 15 or 20 years ago. I think there's just a question of how much we value education as a society, and if we value our education system, we need to make sure that we're upholding that and not encouraging people to flee from it. And that seems to be the message that was sent.
Yeah, it does seem it's like they'll spend billions and billions of dollars to subsidize the parents to flee from the public schools. That's what it was coming from. And I agree with you. There should be school choice because if you feel trapped, you're never going to be happy.
Right.
One of the proposals that I've been, listening to some of the reps out, the state reps to talk about, I guess to use full school choice, or I'm sorry, use a voucher program to solve a real issue we have, is to try out doing some type of voucher program for children with special needs. Mm-hmm. And the argument is that we are underfunding our programs for you can't say special needs kids. Children with special needs. We're underfunding it by about a half. So we need about $4 billion a year. We're funding it at $2 billion a year statewide. Yeah. First of all, what kind of challenges to children with special needs pose to a large organization like yours here in San Angelo do you feel the funding impacts?
This is an interesting topic because 10 years ago there was an 8.5% cap. If you were a school district and you had more than 8.5% of your students that were special ed, you were punished for that.
Really?
By the state.
Was that through the A through F system?
No, it wasn't there yet. But what they did is they would come in and make sure that you weren't over-identifying or under-identifying. They removed that cap, and Texas was audited by the feds and found to be deficit in their special education program. So TEA and the Texas state of Texas as a whole is really behind the 8 ball with the federal government when it comes to special ed. But most schools removed it. Well, we all removed that cap, and now most schools are about 13% special education.
Really?
And that's partly because they included dyslexia in the special education program, but there was more awareness brought to parents to say, hey, we'll test your child and see if there's any disability.
So you might have the quadriplegic, which was, historically always been the child with special needs, but now you have the normal-looking child who has short-term memory loss.
Yeah, there's a broad range from the most severe.
They've expanded it
to those with dyslexia or speech impediments, or maybe hearing or vision.
So how does San Angelo ISD do this? Do you feel like you're underfunded in that, or is there a need there for more funding?
Yeah, and a lot of it has to. Yes, the answer is yes. We're definitely not funded, even though we get weighted funding for each of those instructional settings, some more than others.
Yeah, that's from the state?
That's from the state and the feds. We get, but mainly from the federal government when it comes to special education. You'll get weighted funding for a student that's severely disabled, more funding for that student than you would for a student that has speech impairment.
I see.
So it varies, but the truth is, my main concern is not as much about the funding as much about finding teachers to teach these kids, and the shortage that we're seeing in the teaching field, especially special education.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So people don't want to go into the program.
It's tough, and it depends on what kind of a setting that you're in. But the truth is, some of these kids have behaviors that are difficult and would require a person with extra patience and a training to know how to respond, because we love and care for these kids. Some of them struggle in certain settings, and it's our job to make sure that they are safe, that they're provided for. But on the other side of that, we want to make sure our teachers are taken care of as well, protected.
The proposal is to take that shortfall, that $2 billion, and turn it into a voucher program for parents with a child with a special need. What do you think of that?
I think it's a foot in the door for vouchers overall. Usually you're going to get the camel's nose under the tent, start the program,
right,
and expand it. This year it was $500 million that they had earmarked for vouchers, but we know from watching the other states ahead of us,
it was going up very fast.
It quickly turns into billions of dollars.
Yeah.
The other part of that is that I think is important for people to know. There's different tiers. I guess the best way to say it is buckets. Once a bucket is full, then the funding that remains in the voucher program spills over to the next bucket or the next level of people who are eligible. And again, looking at the states that are ahead of us, most of the people who were eligible for the vouchers to begin with, disabled students, low socioeconomic families, they didn't fill the bucket. And so the funding for that voucher program spilled over, and eventually it gets to the parents who are already in the private school, and it's a tuition break for them. And that's why I am opposed to it, is because it sounds good, and I'm all for providing for our students, but I think there's a better way to do it. And frankly, why remove or take funding that could benefit the public schools and move it out?
Right.
When it's clear that the governor is preaching a message that the public schools in Texas aren't what they should be. It's our duty, mine and his, and many others, to make sure that the public schools are provided for.
And one of the things that most people don't know about the public school system here in Texas, one of the reasons why we left, they signed the Declaration of Independence when Texas went to war with Mexico, was because Santa Anna had all the riches, but he would not provide for the public education of the children of Texicans.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
it's a long laundry list of complaints. But the other thing is, it's in our Texas Constitution that we have to have a public education for everyone.
That's right, and Article 7 of our Texas Constitution outlines that. Article 10 of the United States Constitution outlines that powers not given to the federal government are given to the state, and the states should control that locally, if you will. And so I just think it's unfortunate that we have the message being preached that, hey, if you don't, that our public schools are failing, and we want to provide you a way out, when in fact it should be, if our public schools are failing, shouldn't we fix that?
Well, you know, and obviously I'm a conservative Republican, right? So I hate to talk about spending more money, but if you look at the history and historic inflation, when you stick your basic allotment per pupil at what, $6,200? $61.60, and you haven't raised it since 2019.
That's correct.
That is probably a sign that you're underfunded.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I think most people would agree with that. In fact, the folks that are holding the purse strings agree with that as well. But they had to accomplish their purpose.
Right.
And so they've held on to that because there's over $5 billion that's earmarked right now.
Yeah. Then
for public schools.
They can give out for raises and all kinds of stuff.
They are not releasing that.
Right.
It forces the local taxpayers to do what the state really should be doing on our behalf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you seen, like over the history of your career, the state amount of a typical school district's budget versus the local property taxes? I guess if you look at the Foundation Schools program, it's roughly around 30% is the local taxes. The rest of it's state and federal government. Has it pretty much stayed that same balance?
So the funding, if you look about 10 to 15 years ago, the state through property taxes and funding was about 60%, and the local taxpayer paid about 40%. And
so we're actually going down.
That's flipped. Yeah. Now the local taxpayers are bearing most of the burden on that.
I see.
Yeah, state funding's going down.
So it's going down, and for communities like San Angelo, where we don't have this gigantic industrial commercial base,
right,
it falls on the residential taxpayer, the residential property owner, in the most part.
It just forces districts to look at every avenue, and that's why, and I think it's fair to say, the board decided to call for an efficiency audit, which is the first step, which they did in June. The first step that we take prior to any consideration to a voter approval tax rate election.
You mean a bond?
No, it's actually a VA. They call it a TRE, a VATRE, but it's yeah. I'm sorry. Some people call them a Vader.
A Vader?
You might see Proposition A. Yeah, not Darth. But it's a method by which the local taxpayers can increase the local taxation to maximize state funding. And that's in the M&O budget, not the debt.
Okay, so the M&O budget, I mean, like a county or a municipal government has a 3.5% cap.
Yeah.
You want to exceed the 3.5% revenue increase year over year? Is that what this is?
It's similar to that. It's a little bit different. School funding. They have pennies that you can tax on that produce more funding from the state.
I see.
And so right now there's 8 pennies that are available to local taxpayers that they call golden pennies. This gets a little convoluted.
So if you increase by this golden penny, your tax rate goes up from 82 cents to 83 cents,
yes,
which is probably $10 a year for most people, right?
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
Then give me an example.
So we got our tax rate right now is 81 cents. 69% of that is property values, and then the remaining 11 to 12 cents is our bond indebtedness.
Right.
That gives us a total tax rate of 81 cents per $100 valuation on a home. if we were to raise the tax rate, the M&O tax rate for schools by 3 cents, our district would generate about $6 million more annually from the state, $4 million from the state, $2 million locally, that we could use then to provide teacher pay raises, increase security and safety at the school, academic programs, etc. And that's a decision that the board has not made yet, but they did call for the efficiency audit, which tips the hand that we're considering that as a school district.
What if you went up the full 8 golden pennies, the 8
So
cents?
we already have 5.
And we already have 5.
We already have 5. There's 3 remaining.
I got
And
you.
you can go beyond that. There's there are
We have diminishing returns after
yeah,
that?
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. There's 9 they call copper pennies that don't produce or yield anywhere near what the golden pennies do, and it's mainly on the backs of the local taxpayers. Whereas the golden pennies, the yield comes from the state.
So you're looking at it, so if you can give us 3 more cents,
Yeah.
we can leverage that and get a 10-to-1 payoff from the state?
That's about right.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
So
And
that-
3 cents is not a whole lot.
It's not, and I'm not announcing publicly that that's been done, but again, that goes to the conversation of school districts having to do anything and everything they can locally to generate funds because the state's holding back.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you have people who don't have children in school,
Right.
who don't recognize the Texas Constitution
Yeah.
requirement or see the benefit of having an educated population,
Right.
And they're going to complain.
Yeah, so you've got the optional tax, optional homestead exemption that went to $100,000. The good news is a lot of those folks, their tax rate is frozen. Many of them don't even have a school tax bill because of their home value. And then the conversation of the greater good is worth having. For instance, I'm a grandfather,
Right.
proud grandfather of 2.
You don't look that old.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But you know, if my grandkids don't live here, but I hope that the taxpayers where my grandkids do live approve measures to keep the schools good and keep the teachers paid and keep the buses running, because that's going to benefit my grandkids. And I have to remember that here because other people's grandchildren live here and I'm voting to take care of them. So the whole conversation of the greater good, I think, is one worth having with our community.
I think another thing that in the past with the failed bond initiatives and things that you weren't here for,
Right.
but I'll just give you my input
sure.
on it. I don't think there was enough community pride sold in that. I think most of it was defensive against people saying, "Why do you want more money?"
Yeah.
That kind of thing, as opposed to, I've lived all over the world, and I've lived in a lot of different school districts. And one of the best stories I can tell you about the tale of 2 school districts in Bossier City, Louisiana. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a Stockwell place. It's up there north of the Air Force Base, north of Barksdale. Everybody wanted to go there because Stockwell Place Elementary School was like a blue ribbon school. I mean, it was like you're choosing your private school here, but it's a public school.
Sure.
And the houses were 1,500 to 3,000 square, or 1,500 to 2,000 square foot. Postage stamp lots. It was in an old cotton field. Next door, it was in Houghton School District, which is a rural school district on the east side of Louisiana, and the houses were 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. Well, the cost of the house in Stockwell Place, with small houses on the postage stamp lots, was more than the big houses in Dogwood, which is next door, because Dogwood went to a different school. It didn't have a blue ribbon on it.
Right.
It wasn't it wasn't popular. And I think that in San Angelo, one of the attractions when they talk economic development, the economic development driver is the schools.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
People don't come here. People don't live in downtown Dallas, for example, for the schools.
Yeah.
They probably don't have kids.
Yeah.
If you're upper level professional living in a condo in downtown Dallas, you're not there because of Dallas ISD. But I think people will come to San Angelo for the schools.
Yeah.
And if our schools are becoming dilapidated because we're not taking care of them, or our teachers aren't paid enough and we're not getting the best teachers, how are we going to get a blue ribbon school? How are we going to become the Stockwell place?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I agree, and a couple things along that line. One is I have a firm belief that if you have a strong father and mother at home, or a stable household, because I recognize that some parents, they didn't make the choice, but now they're single parents,
Right.
for one reason or another. Or a child may not live with either parent not because of their fault at all, but here they are. If we have a stable household that takes care of their children, they are miles ahead. And when they get to school, they have a greater chance of doing well and succeeding.
And when you say that you had a school that had a lot of parents with stable household, or a lot of families with stable households, that would elevate all boats.
It does. That's right. The rising tide. You bet. And so it's not. I would say this is not a school issue. This is a societal issue. This is one where we've got to strengthen our families. We've got to return to some good moral values where kids know right from wrong and are taught right from wrong and come to school with respectful behaviors. It's a fight, and we're willing to have that fight because I believe that it's worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a single thing. It's not the failing schools. It's really a failing society, and the schools are a microcosm of our society. But I would suggest that in San Angelo, we're sitting on a gold mine because we've got a community that really takes pride in this town. People love this town. They're proud of it. A lot of people have been here for several generations. They want the schools to do well. And as you mentioned, the Chamber of Commerce, the university, everybody's cheering the school district along for that very reason. Goodfellow, same thing. Goodfellow can attract better people when the schools are better. Angelo State's going to benefit. Chamber's going to benefit. So there's no reason for us to turn a blind eye, but really to step up and go to bat for these kids that need us.
So the 3 golden pennies. What other school districts have harnessed all 8 pennies? Is that what it is?
I wish I could tell you the amount.
Do you have an example of like a school district that has harnessed those?
Oh, many. And I'll tell you what I can do. I can follow up with you and give you that
Okay.
information. But any school that has remaining golden pennies that's not going for those to benefit their schools is missing the mark, because here we are sitting by while the state's playing their games, and we've just the simple conversation of safety and security. If we want a qualified law enforcement officer on every campus, as the law states we should, $15,000 a campus isn't going to cut it. And that's what the state gave us to do that. Plus a few bucks a kid, but it didn't come close to covering what we need. And
that doesn't necessarily enhance the educational opportunities at all.
No, but it makes parents feel a lot safer sending their kid to school, right?
Gotcha,
in today's society. And so, it's a matter of if we're gonna do what we can for our students and our teachers, let's pull out all the stops. We've got great teachers, and when I walk the classrooms, I'm impressed. I'm encouraged. I mean, we got people that are working tirelessly to do their best for the kids, and we just need the state to step up and do what they need to do to help us. But it's going to require this community to answer some questions regarding to what degree do we believe in the public school system, and what are we willing to do to support that.
Right. All right. Speaking of parents, you have something for fathers coming up, a program for fathers?
Yeah, this is great. Okay, so I've worked with Mike Hall from Strong Fathers, Strong Families for about a decade.
Okay.
And he's a middle school principal, retired, and his whole goal was to get dads on campus. And so when I say dads, the community should hear me say a trusted adult. Could be a mom, an uncle, a pastor. We start with
But
dads.
mostly a dude.
We
Because
start
dudes don't want to go to.
That's right.
I mean, I've had 3 kids. I didn't want to go to campus.
That's right. This starts with dads, because we know when dads are involved in their kids' lives, girls or boys, and they read to them, and they get involved in their education, and they wrestle.
Now you're making me feel guilty.
Yeah, and they wrestle with them, and they interact with them. We have kids that are healthier emotionally, physically. They do better in school. They're less depressed. All of the things that are statistics go away, and it starts with the dad, and we need to get the dads plugged in. So we're going to do a Bring Your Dad to School Day on every elementary school, all 15 of them. It's going to be a big deal, and we're excited about it. And usually we get about a 65% turnout.
Okay.
And again, if they don't have a dad, they can bring a stepdad, they can bring a mom, an aunt, uncle, whoever they want to bring. We want them to come. but we'd like to bring their dad if they have a dad or a guardian. And we get that guardian to the school. We get them, they follow their kid to class after breakfast. They hang out in the classroom for about 30 minutes. They watch the teacher do what the teacher does every day, just routines. And then we bring the dads back to the cafeteria and we put a program on for them to highlight how important they are in their kid's life.
Okay.
And then we're going to follow up with 3 events during the rest of the year. Bring your dad to science night, bring your dad to math night, and bring your dad to reading night.
So we're going to get the men involved in
The
school.
dudes. That's
the
right.
dudes.
That's right. It's a great thing. And we know that, I know from personal experience, because I've been a dad at these programs and I've also been an administrator. When dads come to school and meet the teachers and see the classroom and experience what's going on, they're more likely to help their kid when their kid needs help, to defend that teacher when the teacher needs, because that kid's going to come home and say, teacher hurt my feeling, or teacher didn't treat me right. Dad's been to the school, dad can pick up the phone and call the teacher and go, hey, how can I help you? Because that's really where
As opposed to, why did you do this?
That's right. That's right. As the old saying goes, we won't believe everything your kid tells us if you don't believe everything your kid tells us about us too, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's a reciprocal.
Well, I think it's also good to get the dads involved, because that's what really part of the societal problems we have right now. So men aren't involved in raising kids.
We need dads. We need dads to be involved. That's right.
All right, so we broke 2 things on today's story. You're going to go for we have 8 pennies that are available to every school district in Texas. We're using right now, San Angelo ISD is using 5 of those 8 pennies, and we can get 3 more. And the benefit of them is that if we increase our tax 3 cents, for example, the state will pay us back in multiples.
It's like an investment with a greater yield. And
they have like 10 times matching funds.
Yeah, and so the information today is that the board is considering this. They'll come back in August. If they decide to call a Proposition A, they would have to do it prior to August 19th.
Okay.
There's been no action by the board.
Okay.
So I don't want to miscommunicate, but it is on the table, and that we are at least considering that right now.
And on the bad side, it would be a tax increase. On the good side is we're investing in probably what is San Angelo's economic development front door. You talk about the Central Bobcats or the Lakeview Chiefs, the football teams being the front door to our community. It really is the school district.
And I'll just mention this because I've been a part of 3 of those VATREs or Proposition A's.
Vaders.
Yeah, sometimes you can do a swap. And what I mean by that is if your property values are increasing enough and you can give up some debt pennies, you can raise the maintenance and operations pennies and have no tax increase and still generate the money that those pennies generate.
I got you.
So we're hopeful that we'll be able to do something like that.
So it would be kind of like a tax rate neutral.
That's correct.
Not necessarily a revenue neutral thing, but it'd be a tax rate.
That's correct. Yep. And time will bear all that out.
And what he's talking about is like the INS, the interest and sinking part of the school district's budget, is set based on how much. If your monthly bond payments are $100,000, if your valuation goes up and that same 4 cents or whatever, I know INS is probably higher than that, but whatever. Let's say you have 10 cents in INS. If 10 cents is bringing in more than $100,000, you can knock it down to 7 cents.
That's right.
And then we can go over here with the golden pennies, take those 3 cents and
You got it.
and kick up our maintenance and
That's
operation,
it.
which goes toward teacher raises. And
Yep.
I mean, y'all done such a good job with managing that M&O. I think a lot of people don't give you enough credit, and this has been going on for 15, 20 years, where you would take money and you do capital improvements using M&O money
Right.
within the bounds of the law,
That's right.
obviously. But that's probably saved us from having to have a no kidding bond.
You're right. And 5 years ago in White House, we would replace HVAC units, maybe even rooftops, with capital improvement out of our M&O. And inflation and all those things have increased to the point where most districts can't do that anymore. They have to call for a bond election to get that done. And so that has forced districts to do things they typically wouldn't have done.
Yeah, and going out and getting in debt to get a new air conditioner is crazy.
It is crazy. That's right. Yep.
Anyway, this is Dr. Chris Moran. He is the superintendent of schools here at San Angelo Independent School District. I'm Joe Hyde with San Angelo Live. We're in the palatial offices, by the way. We're not in our studio. But anyway, back to you guys in the studio.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Kano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Kano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Thanks for watching the Live Daily News Show, the only locally owned live news show in the Concho Valley. Go like us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and other social media platforms, and download the San Angelo Live mobile app today to stay up to date on all the news from in and around the Concho Valley. Thanks again, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.